Hey, surprise live stream. I realized I'd been neglecting you guys with a busy schedule that I've had. So here we are with 3 minutes notice. DeMeco Ryans spoke today just and delivered the news that Stefon Diggs, after much speculation that it would be an ACL for Stefon Diggs, lo and behold, it was. And he said a few nice things about Stefon Diggs. I grabbed I thought was the best bite and perhaps the best testament to what Stefon Diggs has meant to the team in his short time here.
Wide receivers.
Yeah, Steph has brought more to our team than I can explain to everyone here. Just standing here today is the leadership aspect off the field. Not only, as you mentioned, starts with the receivers, but it's with working with him in training camp and seeing him pull the DBs aside and talk to the DBs about covering. Right? It's that's where you know you have a special pro, right? Who's truly paying it forward, reaching back, helping the younger guys. And that's how the game is built. That's what the league is all about. Like, it's about pros like Steph who are able to teach younger guys, and those younger guys teaching the next generation of guys. So, man, love everything about Steph and what he brought to our team. We're just praying for him to get back healthy and strong.
Yeah, look, and it's one thing about DeMeco. He's been consistent since he got here, and the importance of veteran players teaching the younger guys. And DeMeco's experience as a player helps with that, obviously. I think we're seeing it pay dividends with Will Anderson. Like, Will was going to work hard regardless, but there's nothing quite like having the tutelage of your peers around you. Like, I wasn't a pass rusher at all, but I had a couple years where I had 4 or 5 sacks as a run-stuffing defensive tackle, and that didn't start until Tony Brackens, who's a really, really good edge rusher, started working with me. And whether it's the receivers, the defensive backs, the defensive line, the offensive line, like that veteran leadership means a lot. I don't know, maybe with some of those positions that are struggling or laggards that maybe, I don't know. So obviously they lose Stefon Diggs' production on the field. We saw Tank Dell start to replace some of that last week. I would expect that to continue. They've got a tough matchup this week. The Jets defense has not been playing as well since Robert Saleh left, but these are still physical cornerbacks that can be a challenge for smaller guys or guys that aren't as lightning fast. There's not a Nico Collins on the squad right now. Hopefully there will be next week. But it's a blow. And the one silver lining might be that maybe they get him back at a discount next year. CJ in his press conference talked about how Stefon seemed to really be enjoying his time here and having a lot more fun than he said he'd had anywhere else. So I know that's a long ways off, but that possibility exists that maybe coming off an ACL, maybe it's at a discount a little bit. We'll see. Next question, or I just hand selected a few of these. He's asked about Kenyan Green. We'll talk about Kenyan Green a couple times here, but this is where Kenyan Green stands right now.
Kenyan is done fine. Kenyan, of course, like I said yesterday, he had some bad plays. A lot of guys had some bad plays. And everybody's asking about Kenyan, and nobody feels, worse about this than Kenyan, right? And he knows he has to play better. He will play better, and let's go to work. Like, that's what it's about. It's not about everybody trying to figure out, is Kenyan out? And like, let's Kenyan is ready. He'll be ready to roll, and we won 6 games with Kenyan. Like, we got to keep going.
This is a little bit where I'll do a Nick Caserio video tomorrow. Nick Caserio called it a lazy narrative that the offensive line has been an issue. They benched Kenyan Green in the middle of that game. So I understand they're supporting their players, but I can't sit here without objection and act like, well, hey, I feel like Caserio and Nico are doing a little bit of the Southern Belle. They're like, I don't know why anybody would be maligning poor Kenyan. He's been doing just great. You benched him. So it hasn't been great. There's an issue there. The rest of the offensive line, I do think that there's a potential ripple effect if you get competent left guard play in there, either from Kendrick Green or a revamped Kenyan Green or a non-concussed Jacob Patterson or perhaps a trade, because some of the protections that they do run are to cover up some of the weaknesses on the interior, and a lot of that starts with Kenyan Green. So it's an issue. We're going to talk about it. DeMeco's going to stay positive, but don't feel guilty for a moment that you're concerned about a player who was benched in the middle of an NFL game. That's a sign of an issue. Anthony Richardson benched himself, and now he's benched for good until Joe Flacco gets injured. Next question. We'll talk about Kenyan in a little bit because I do like one thing that DeMeco said about Kenyan. Will they trade for a receiver? This is a quick one.
Yeah, we feel we like the guys we have, and our guys have been here. They've been working, understand how we do things, what we do, and so we're excited to see who steps up next.
There's a little bit of a coy grin there at the end. I wouldn't be surprised if the Texans take a look at some of the Cooper Kupps or whomever else out there. But I also I think it might be, if we want to speculate, if they don't try to trade for a wide receiver, at the very least, I'm hoping that it's because Nico Collins is just fine and he's eligible to return against the Lions. It's a very remember because I've seen a couple of people say like, look, this is one of the deepest wide receiver rooms in the league. Why would you have to go out and get more? It's deep still, even without Stefon Diggs. If you lose Nico Collins, it's a lot less deep, and there's not necessarily top-end talent there. I think Xavier Hutchinson and John Metchie, who we'll also talk about in a little bit, are going to be just fine, but they're not straw that mixes the drink, attract coverage types of guys. Not the way Nico Collins is. So as long as Nico comes back, I know you always got to worry about injury, but that's a pretty solid wide receivers room there. And without hearing any news about Nico Collins other than that he's on track, I'm just going to take that at face value for right now. And then Landry asks if they're worried about the horrible playing surface up at MetLife Stadium.
Landry, we got to get you on that playing surface to test it out. It doesn't. You got to go play, right? If you're worried about a surface, you're worried about things can happen at any time, any given moment, on any given field. So that doesn't come into mind. Just about guys being ready to go. Of course, it's tough to get guys ready on a short week. That's part of the business. We have to go. We don't care what surface we're playing on. We're gonna line up and go play to the best of our abilities. And if you worry about things that you can't control, then it's wasted energy. And I don't want guys wasting energy on things they can't control.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, and this goes back to the old pallet days at NRG Stadium. For you youngsters, when the stadium was first built, they wanted natural grass, so they had this pallet system where they would bring the grass in and lay it in like a parquet floor, and it wasn't great. There were seams all over the place. I tore my hamstring off my pelvis on that turf. It was a mess. DeMeco Ryans tore his Achilles tendon while he was playing for the Eagles on that turf. It wasn't great. And, somebody – I should have said this at the moment that I don't – oh, wait. Somebody made their proper point, which is I don't think that Cooper Kupp's going to be available. The Rams look a lot better with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp out on the field together. But any of the other guys – an offensive guard is the only thing that titillates me right now, which is something that's not usually said in the same sentence as an offensive guard. It's a very specific niche on the internet. People who are titillated by offensive guards tends to be fat O-line coaches with big dips in their mouth, and then another faction of people. Let's see. Next question. Oh, and as far as the field goes, I remember as a player, I would go work out on my high school field every year and, run wind sprints and everything, or my wife's high school. And my wife wasn't in high school. The high school she attended, my God, when she was in high school in the off season. And every time I was like, my God, we're spoiled. Like these practice fields in the NFL, the practice fields are the best. The practice fields are better than any playing service on Sundays because they don't have to do any other events or anything. You got 3 practice fields laid out. It's pristine. It's like a golf green all the way across. Sometimes it starts to get brown later in the year, but we're spoiled. You go out and play football. Like every high school kid in America that plays at a small high school or doesn't have nice turf, or they do have turf and it's old, you're going to play football. Can't worry about that stuff. We're not Goldilocks. This is not a team full. There's no Goldilocks in Swarm. You can't spell Goldilocks with Swarm. Don't fact check me on that. Okay, how do you help Kenyan Green? This is interesting. This gets into the sports psychology of things a little bit.
And for me, I go back and I go to the film, right? You go to the film and you show players, right, what they've done well and the good reps that they've had, and just get back to doing that. Like, Kenyan has had a lot of good reps for us, and I expect him to have some good reps this Thursday.
All right, so I know that sounds. I know the old school part of you wants to say, like, no, you got to sit in a room and hammer him on his mistakes for 4 hours. I think the way DeMeco approaches everything, and I got to talk to him about this, like depending on how much of it he bases on his playing experience versus a lot of the sports psychology that's come out in the past couple decades really shows that it's, as much as you do need to correct mistakes, human beings are modeling animals. That's how we learn how to talk. That's how we learn how to walk. We do all these things by modeling other people's behavior. And that just simply by watching people do it right, including examples of yourself doing it right, and really focusing on that seems to be more expedient, you know? If you need to, you can yell at them or something. If you got to keep it old school, whatever. But just really trying to model after the good thing. And my old coach, Gary Moeller, remember he used to be the head coach at Michigan. He was my defensive coordinator one year. He used to say something really interesting, which is you can't visualize a negative. So if you tell somebody, you know, don't take that false step, and you watch it 10 times on film, all your brain is seeing and hearing and thinking about and imagining is you taking that false step. So you're getting mental reps at doing it the wrong way. So you want to try to be sure people understand where the error was, but then really focus on how to do it right. And look, Kenyan had some good snaps in the second half, or at least after he was reinserted. Some of them were just straight up good snaps. A lot of them were because the Texans started running boots and, you know, half rolls and stuff that could get the line moving and get a little bit of play action. And it's a lot easier because you can latch onto a guy in an instance like that. And those were against defensive tackles, DeForest Buckner coming back from injury, Grover Stewart, who's not a really fast guy. Neither of those guys at this stage in their career are anything like Quinnen Williams. And when we talk about the MetLife turf, because I saw a couple questions about the MetLife turf, yes, that is where CJ hit his head as Quinnen Williams beat up the left guard, Juice Scruggs at the time, and had a clean and legal hit on CJ. That's this matchup. We can talk about Sauce Gardner or Derek Stingley or Aaron Rodgers or anything. This might be for that little niche that's into interior offensive linemen. This is a big one because this is strength versus weakness. This is Quinnen Williams versus a spot at left guard that you just don't feel good about right now. And a lot of this goes to everybody else on the line, depending on who's there at left guard. Including CJ, I think. And CJ talks about it in his press conference. Bobby Slowick had talked about this last week. There's parts of handling the blitz and dealing with the blitz that falls on the quarterback and the receivers and the tight ends, and understanding when they're hot, knowing when you're going to have to go hot, all of that, and developing more of a quick passing game. And that's the whole operation there. I'm not making excuses for Kenyan Green, but we are where we are right now, unless they trade for Joel Bitonio or something and he can come in immediately. This is the situation, and they got to figure out a way to deal with it. And hopefully also that the Jets defense hasn't, as good as they've been on the season, they haven't been as good since Saleh left. The one weird thing, though, and the really annoying thing is that Quinnen Williams started off slow, and in the last few weeks, he's really picked it up. He's got like twice as many pressures in the last few weeks as he had in the beginning of the season. So that's the big old literal headache as of last year with Quinnen Williams. Getting ready for the quick turnaround for a Thursday night game. I thought this was interesting.
Quick. Our sports performance group they're the key to this week. You know, everything that we do is about recovery and rest. And our team has put together a really great plan for our guys to where they don't have to think about it. All they have to do is just follow the plan that our team has laid out for them. And I'm just so thankful, you know, for their support and their help when it comes to, helping guys recover, helping guys take care of their bodies, our team is second to none. I've never been around a team that shows as much, love and so much care for our guys. I mean, this is first class, all the way from top to bottom, first class program that we have, and our guys should be very thankful to be a part of this program.
So shout out to the sports science staff. DeMeco, remember when he was in Philadelphia, played for Chip Kelly, who was way into the sports science, way ahead of everybody else in the NFL, or most people in the NFL at the time. He was closer to where European soccer is in some of the sports science stuff. And DeMeco's talked about it. He's, like all coaches do, he's kind of picked and choose some of Chip Kelly's strategies. And I remember, I got to ask DeMeco about this too. I know one thing about the defensive players in Philadelphia was that they were just, because of the fast tempo of that offense, the defense was on the field a lot. They would end up being in the top three, both stops for Chip Kelly in the NFL. His defenses would be like in the top three for snaps played, and they'd kind of wear down towards the end of the year. So I think the mixture of DeMeco's real-world understanding of what NFL fatigue is versus college fatigue, but then also having the exposure to some of Chip Kelly's ideas, I think he's the right blend. That's the A.J. Hinch part of DeMeco. He can appreciate the scientific and the analytical side, but he's also got the real world. I've been through this to figure out what works and doesn't work. On the short turnaround, like what he's been stressing all week is rest and recovery. I think that is your biggest edge. And especially versus a team like the Jets, where there might be some players on that team who are starting to feel like they want to let go of the rope. Like, you're just like, all right, yeah, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do my thing, but I don't have the same passion or energy that I had before. Everything's in turmoil here. The Aaron Rodgers isn't the Aaron Rodgers I used to watch on TV when I was 6. And the attention to just taking care of your body in a 4-day period, I'm hoping the Texans really have an edge with that, even though they're traveling. Those guys, the ones that live in New York at least, also have to travel to New Jersey. So a smaller commute than coming from Houston. This is DeMeco on Xavier Hutchinson and John Metchie.
Yeah, one thing that sticks out, Hutch, Metch, all these guys, just from our last game, like just showing guys winning their one-on-one opportunities. Hutch, going to the ground there, making a tough catch. Metchie, finding a way to win in an off-schedule moment there in the game and come up with a big catch. That's all we ask. Just win your one-on-one and make the plays that that you're supposed to make. If guys do that, like collectively as a team, we'll be just fine.
Yeah, and the winning the one-on-one part is where I think Xavier Hutchinson and John Metchie are both guys that they understand this offense now. Hutchinson more so than Metchie. He's just got a head start on it. He's been healthier over the last – he didn't have cancer. And so kudos to him for that. But, like, John Metchie's really coming along. Neither of those guys are as twitchy as the top 3 guys. John Metchie's way twitchier than we thought he was, but he's got the most room to keep developing, and we'll see what he becomes. But I think they're gonna get their targets until Nico comes back. Just talking to various people around the team, Xavier Hutchinson is the guy that just seems to have the best vibe with CJ right now and within the system. But John Metchie, obviously, they're high on. The biggest concern again is that they're going up against some really good cornerbacks. They play a lot of man. The Jets have actually played a lot more man since Robert Saleh left. So that's where, and they've played worse defense. So immediately you think, wow, they're playing a bunch of man. The Jets have really good cornerbacks. You're down 2 of your top 3 wide receivers. What's that look like? For whatever it's worth, the sum total of things hasn't been great for the Jets defense. And the one-on-one man matchups might not be as drastically of as drastic a mismatch as it might look on paper, especially when you consider you got to start adding the safeties and linebackers into the mix with some of these other guys. And I think I'm not overly concerned about it. But I have way more respect for the Jets than their record would suggest. They've been in a lot of close games. It is still Aaron Rodgers. There's still freaking Devontae Adams. They got Devontae Adams on that squad now. I don't think it's crazy to think that the chemistry between Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams might return a lot sooner than if you just signed some random wide receiver off the street, or even a guy with a name like Devontae Adams but doesn't have that previous relationship. And given what happened in New York last year, there's not a chance in hell I'm sleeping on this Jets team, who is, by the way, favored right now versus the Texans. I've got a theory about that in one regard. This is a little public service announcement from DeMeco to the team. I love seeing this. Somebody had asked him about his T-shirt. It says something about vote or something. But I thought this was interesting. I don't remember this ever happening while I was a player. But I've forgotten a lot of things too. They had people come in to educate the guys about, basically, they had somebody from the NFL come in to give the Texans players a civics lesson.
Yeah, for sure. We've had the NFL came in and we had a meeting about voting, about getting our guys registered and making sure guys just understand the importance of not only the presidential election, but more so the importance of the local elections. And that's, kind of what matters most and what's going on right here in our backyard, making sure we understand like who we're voting for, what they stand for, and making sure we have the information in front of us so we're knowledgeable when we're going to the ballots, when we're going to the voting stations, we're knowledgeable about who we're picking, and we're not just, doing it haphazardly, like really being conscious about who we're voting for.
I like that. I just look, I know Joey Bosa did the thing with the hat the other day, and I do, like, for the most part I stay away from any I'm trying to focus on the Texans. I think the NFL's policy is that you're not supposed to have any kind of political messages of any type or variety on there. I feel like they should be the opposite. They're just because this is the thing you have to do with your athletes, is that sometimes you have to, without being able to just be in your own little bubble all the time, you got to recognize, okay, there's people that I like and respect and am cheering for, but maybe I don't agree with them politically. And the interesting thing about it with Bosa is that for all of the, uproar or controversy or whatever, or if anybody, says anything about Kamala, whatever, like, these guys all get along in the locker room. It's not, you just don't have to absolutely despise everybody that you disagree with politically. And it's kind of cool that, because from so many different walks of life in an NFL locker room, you learn that. I know people in the military say the same thing, that you get thrust into situations with a lot of people from widely different backgrounds, and you learn to respect each other's differences. So I like that. If you're trying to encourage people to be, participate in their democracy, they're doing it in this environment where, there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with each other on a football team. And you've got time to argue and debate and tell each other you're stupid, but then still, go out and be friends and work together. So good for you, DeMeco. Plus, I like that DeMeco focused on the local part of it, since DeMeco is that rare NFL head coach who specifically wanted to be in the city in which he's coaching. It wasn't just one of 32 jobs. It wasn't the city that had the best quarterback. He specifically wanted to come back to Houston because he played here, because his wife is from here. I cannot tell you how nice it is having your grandparents around while you're trying to raise young children, or your parents and your grandparents, if you're so lucky, to help raise your young children. So that good job, DeMeco. You get these questions. But I'm also not going to do that one of those things where I'm like, hey, everybody, let's be nice to each other. I get it. Let's see. Politics should not be discussed these days as I bring up the political thing. Okay, because then there's that side of it. That's where I was going when I was second guessing myself. All right, personally, I try to encourage people to read as much as possible and try to ignore as much on social media as possible, because you're getting little snippets that are either a slam against somebody taken out of context, or it's fake news or whatever. But it's impossible to avoid, obviously. I did not get to talk to Andre at all after the Hall of Fame ring. I've got so many duties on game day that I kind of I was gonna run down at halftime when I saw everybody coming out, and I had to get something done. So I saw a bunch of former teammates though, so it was cool. I saw Gary Walker for the first time in a few years. We had him on the pregame show, and then I saw a bunch of old defensive linemen and a few other guys that I realized I got to reach out to because I saw them from afar, but I couldn't get to them. But it was very, very cool to see. Really cool to see Andre out there with Janice McNair. I was really happy to see that. All right, who's protecting CJ? I'm picking these at random. Nobody get offended. This will be a long night if the line doesn't sort things out. Yes, these Jets beat the crap out of us last year, 30-6 with Zach freaking Wilson. Hey, they beat more teams last year with Zach Wilson than they've beat with Aaron Rodgers. I believe they were 4-2 at this point last season. Mostly with Zach Wilson. Had it been all Zach Wilson up to that point? I don't remember they weren't Aaron Rodgers caliber quarterbacks. So there's that. Hope our wide receivers don't dive on that field. Oh, don't remind me that Tank Dell's concussion was caused by nobody except the turf in Atlanta. I'm sure the Jets are licking their chops for a win with the Nico and Diggs injuries, overlooking the defense, though. Oh, that was what I wanted to say. My theory about the spread. So, obviously, with Nico and Stef out, the Texans are not the same team. There are a lot of things about the Texans right now that scream 500 team, except that they've been good on the balance at close games and situational football. They had a couple hiccups there, here and there, Green Bay, for instance. But I think that part of it is probably that early in the week, the Texans were the favorite. The line moved, and a lot of computer simulations I've seen have it at about a draw or maybe a little bit, the Texans' 48% win probability, depending on which computer model you're looking at. And I wonder sometimes with the computer models, they can't factor in the effect of having a coordinator fired in season when it was a coordinator who was actually doing his job well. And that would be Robert Saleh. So plenty of evidence and examples to go by of head coaches who were fired or coordinators who were fired and the team wasn't doing well at all. I think it's relatively rare for a defense, let's call him not even the head coach, a defensive coordinator whose defense was playing really well to get fired. And then lo and behold, over these last few weeks, they haven't looked like the same defense. And so when you factor in the models and the stats and everything, I wonder if they're overestimating the Jets defense a little bit. So if that gives you a ray of hope or makes you feel better about it, good. I'm still terrified of Quinnen Williams. Last week, even though I have no respect for him as a quarterback or as somebody who can stay in a game, Anthony Richardson terrified the hell out of me. And that's just because he's capable of making these circus throws. This week, I am, this is not paradoxically terrified of this player. I'm terrified of Quinnen Williams because he's a really good defensive tackle going up against the big weakness on the team right now, which is left guard. So we'll see. And they can do things to help like they had been doing earlier in the season, but I don't want to see that. I don't need to see the tight end staying in so Laramie can help out Kenyan. The best protection for CJ sometimes I think is getting guys out on routes ASAP and let CJ, as CJ said in his press conference, he wants more on his plate. I think CJ wants to be more involved with pass protection. I think he wants to probably be more involved with tweaking things at the line of scrimmage. You know, he can audibilize and everything, but there's always levels and degrees to that. So my biggest matchup by far in this game is Quinnen Williams, pressure right up the gut against a spot that's been a sore spot for the Texans so far this year. And I mean, like, don't let my facial expression fool you. I'm really excited about this game. I do think I haven't given my prediction yet. It's such a short damn week, but I will have the Texans winning this game even without Stefon Diggs. But I got to get to. I've been getting pretty good at getting the totals over the last few weeks, and now I'm starting to feel the pressure on that. So I will be there for you, I promise. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I got to go. It's getting late, man. I got to get up at 4 a.m. Milk the cow.